Hello and welcome to another Heart to Heart Talk with me. I'm John Kuert, pastor at Alpha Assembly in Clarion, Pennsylvania. And it's good to be with you. At the start of another week, I want to continue what I shared this morning in church on Sunday morning. I used the text from Joel chapter 2, verses 12 through 14, where he says, "Turn to me with all your heart while there is time. Fast with weeping and mourning. Empty your hearts, not just your stomachs. Don't just tear your clothing to impress me, but rather tear your hard hearts. Return to me, your Lord and God. Who knows if I will give you mercy and blessing instead of curse? Perhaps I will even give you abundant blessings." And I shared this morning how important it is for us to pray, but also if we're really serious about seeing God move, fast and pray. It doesn't have to necessarily be food, as I shared this morning, but we can fast from watching TV or fast from being on the internet or fast from any number of things, any enjoyment, and take that time instead and give yourself to prayer and seeking God and allowing God to fill you as you empty yourself before his presence. Now, I found some great quotes on prayer, and I want to share them with you today and continue to emphasize prayer and fasting. I remember Bill Bright when I met him um, several years ago. He was in his 80s and he was not doing too well, but someone asked him, "What can I do to pray for you?" And he said, "Pray that I never lose my first love." We thought that he would say, "Well, pray that I be healed." But that's not what he prayed. He said, "Pray that I never lose my first love." And Bill Bright fasted the last, I don't know, decade of his life. The beginning of every year, he fasted 40 days for revival in America. Now, that tells me that he was really serious about what he wanted to see God do in our nation. And I think that fasting along with prayer shows how intense we are, how serious we are about really getting hold of, as we used to say, the horns of the altar. When someone in the Old Testament really meant business, they would go into the place, the holy place, and grab a hold of the horns of the altar and not let go until they felt that they prayed through. And I believe that we need to do that. And fasting, I think, is a way of showing that we are really, really serious. So here's what some of these quotes I found. Prayer is not getting man's will done in heaven, but getting God's will done on earth. Here's another quote. Only those who see the invisible can attempt the impossible. Folks, we need to have a greater vision for what God is able to do, and pray and believe and fast that as we attempt the impossible, God will respond to us and will bring blessing upon blessing, and that we cannot even contain it all. Here's another great quote. More things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of. And God does nothing but by prayer and everything with it. Most men pray for power, the strength to do things. Few people pray for love, the quality to be someone. See, God is more interested in what we are becoming than what we are doing. And it's only as we become what he wants us to be that we can do greater things for him, and that we can pray and believe that God will be with us as we step out in faith. Prayer requires more of the heart than the tongue. And here's another great quote: "No one is a firmer believer in the power of prayer than the devil. Not that he practices it, but he suffers from it." One more quote: "The greatest tragedy of life is not unanswered prayer, but unoffered prayer." And there are so many ways that we can offer up prayer and supplication with fasting, so that God will move on our behalf, that God will bring us to a greater place, a deeper place spiritually, and that we can see great things done. I think we have become too dependent on ourselves. We've become self-sufficient as Americans, even in spite of some of the inflationary problems that we have, and that's difficult for sure. But we are still blessed far more than any other nation in the world, I believe. And so I think that we need to really press into God and believe that He will hear us when we pray, and He will bring answers, especially in that spiritual realm. Uh, one I keep saying one last quote, but I keep having some of these, pray as if everything depended on God, but work as if everything depends upon you. And the reason why we obtain no more in prayer is because we expect no more. And that's one thing I shared this morning, is that we should not just say, I believe God can do great things, but that He will do things. And we can have that faith to believe. He's given us a blank check. He said, greater things than me you will do. And so if we just become more intense in our prayer life, in our walk with God, we can see great things accomplished. We can see loved ones come to Christ who have been far away from Him for a long time. We can see people healed. We can see people restored, delivered from drugs, alcohol, other addictions. Marriages healed. We can see all these things. But let's really get serious with God. I believe that's the key, that we need to be like that in these last days. Well, thanks for joining me, and I hope and pray that this strikes a chord in your heart, and that it will motivate you this week to really do some serious praying, and even with some fasting, so that we can see God do great things. The people that Joel was talking to were spiritually asleep. They were half-hearted for God. They were religious outwardly, but not inwardly. And they were involved in idolatry. And I think that we, in a sense, are involved in all those things. The church, in many times today, is spiritually asleep. We're half-hearted for God. We're not all out. And we're religious outwardly, but inwardly there's still some work that God has to do on us, and we've become idolaters. It doesn't mean that we have statues, but it means that we put other things before God. Other things are more important. And as I share this, I'm really preaching at myself. I've often said, when you point the finger at somebody, there's three fingers that are pointing back to you, and I'm speaking to myself and challenging myself, and I hope you will join me. Well, thanks again for joining me. And as I said before, I'm the pastor at Clarion Alpha Assembly. Check out our website, alphaag.org, or our Facebook page, and you'll find some of these devotionals that I have recorded there. You can also find them on YouTube, and you can find it by saying John Kuert, Heart to Heart, with John Kuert and put the date in, and it would bring it up. So, well, anyway, we'll hopefully see you soon. God bless you. I'm sorry I'm just a little bit long today. I hope it doesn't take too much out of your day, but I hope it does really challenge you. So God bless you, and Lord willing, I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.